Good evening, everyone. I hope you are doing well today. I just realized I'm on StreamYard, but I don't have my YouTube set up. So let me go ahead and quickly get back onto YouTube for just a second here. And of course, as per usual, I'm going to just check down the chat just to see if you can see me, if you can hear me, if everything is going okay. Okay, of course. Confirmation by my wonderful Prof. Goodball. You look and sound great. That's good. And then actually I'll just for kicks have the highlighted post. Hello, beautiful. I'm looking forward to your analysis. Goodbye. And I say, thank you, handsome. Goodbye. That's how they talk in my head, the Moogles of Final Fantasy. I think that's what you call them. So let me go ahead and go to my channel. I am three subscribers away from being 1900. So that's a milestone, right? Let me mute myself real quick. And let's see. We had a really cold day today. It was rainy all day. It was dark all day. It was, I think, 37 degrees. We went from 80 last week to 37 today. So I was hoping to wear like a cooler shirt, for summer, but it's not cold enough to wear heavy long sleeves, but it's also not warm enough to wear short sleeves for me at least. So anyway, we'll go ahead and welcome to chat and then talk about Final Fantasy. We're going to be talking about Final Fantasy V, and then also talking about 5 themes that I have really enjoyed. I'd love to cover all the themes and all the way, all the tracks that Uematsu incorporates for this wonderful, wonderful game. But I'll just talk about 5 major themes, 3 for the heroes and 2 for the villains. Really, it's actually just 1 for the villain, but I try to put in Gilgamesh. He's a pretty interesting. He's not a villain. He's an antagonist, and he's pretty cool. But he's part of the bad guy soundtrack. So anyway, let's go ahead and welcome Brian Gilmartin. As a Final Fantasy player since 1991, I'm eagerly anticipating tonight's stream. Yeah, I that is one thing about my childhood I just wish I had, and that is I wish I played the Super Nintendo Final Fantasy games. I just started last year, and I've enjoyed them very, very much so far. So I finished 4 and 5. I'm on 6 right now. I think hour 8. Enjoying 6 very much. But yeah, that was one thing I knew I missed in my childhood was playing with the Final Fantasy. I knew of the music, so there's that. Big Al Presents says they call it Final Fantasy, but they keep making more. Sounds like a big fib. Yeah, well, I think I said this to the prof the other night. I said I'm so glad that the makers of Final Fantasy, I can't remember the main developer. I'm so glad he didn't stop at the first game. I'm glad he continued as episodic games because they're all in their own worlds and their own universes. There's no intermingling until much games that came much later. But I'm glad he didn't stop at the first one because I really do enjoy Final Fantasy V, and I love 6. But 5 was so fun. 4 was great too, but 5 was really. I think it will go down as one of my favorites. Brian Gilmartin says they called it Final Fantasy. He's going to clarify because at the time Square thought it would be their last game. Fortunately, that turned out not to be the case. All right. All right. So we've got also Go Team Ghost Planet, and Elijah Brown is also here, and actually early, right? Because you're usually a little bit later. Maybe there's like another stream on Monday nights that you want to go to. I don't think I've ever had any conflicting streams. The channels that I do listen to, I think only 1 or 2 do live streams, so I never have that problem. Daniel Heron is in the house. What's up? Thank you again for the recommendation. I submitted my application for that position that you sent. And no word yet. I'm sure it'll be like, I'll wait a week, but I appreciate the recommendation. It's basically Daniel sent me a job recommendation as a content writer, a writer of content for a classical music YouTube channel. And it'd be nonfiction classical music analysis, which actually is kind of fun. And I love talking about classical music when I do. And so I thought that would be just a really good way of making supplemental income. So I sent an application to this owner of this channel Saturday, and no response yet, but hopefully something will come of it. I put that application on a silver platter. I try to make it look as good as possible, because it'd be really cool to have that position. Final Fantasy Fan 12 is already, after not being in Final Fantasy, after not being in the Final Fantasy 4 stream because I was playing through Metal Gear Solid 3, let's begin to talk about Final Fantasy 5. And then everyone is saying I'm loud and clear. That's good. And Zootopia, welcome. So glad to see you. And Bit by Bit Sound, also glad to see you. Hey, Sound Engraver, you know how to be here for Final Fantasy talk. That's good. And I like your avatar. I think that's a famous game, although I don't know what it is. Snowing in southern wow, I can't. Sorry if I can't pronounce your city there. Ontario. Thank you. Thank you, Mind, as I mispronounce live on a stream. That usually happens, by the way, when you're speaking publicly. Centaur 6. Oh, I see. Yeah, well, we'll just leave that. I'll just call you Centaur. Dr. Y also in the house. Doctor has arrived. And all right. Ace also. Okay, enjoying the rewatch from the future. Okay, welcome. Welcome to the present, which right now is the past. Okay, and then, and only question I'll pose is, would you be open to videos responding to music from various genres, or no interest in that? Open to videos responding to music from various genres. Oh, I see what you're saying. I've thought about it before, where I'm responding to music suggestions. I'll say this. I feel like I could be okay at that. Somewhat skilled, giving my impressions and some musical analysis on what I hear. But the thing is, as far as me as a watcher on YouTube content, I actually don't watch that for my own entertainment. I don't watch people react to things like movies or music or whatever. So I can't feel myself get into that headspace for my own channel. I mean, if the request was large enough, like if a lot of people started asking or say, hey, this would be great. But I already have some ideas for trying to keep my content pretty specific rather, if I had not said that. And so I would be open to it, but it really would depend on how much the demand for it would be, if that makes sense. But good question. Yeah, so I have an open mind. Actually, this is kind of an experimental year for my channel. We'll get into our topic soon, more on Final Fantasy. That's the beauty of Final Fantasy, their own universe and world in each game, unless they want to do a crossover. Yeah, Dissidia is where they bridge in all the characters and the worlds and stuff like that. But yeah, good stuff. It's from RPG Maker. I use it to make videos on my channel and showcase my music. I think we're talking about two separate things, but if you guys wanted to clarify. So let's talk about Final Fantasy V and then just Final Fantasy in general. It's gonna be a fun stream. At least I think it's gonna be fun because I love Final Fantasy. So up until now and going forward, I would say that Final Fantasy V has a special place in my heart for a couple of reasons. The first reason actually has to do with the gameplay. The couple of things I like about the gameplay is, first of all, the job systems. I mean, you can always go back to that game, even go through the same story, and there are different variations of endings depending on how you beat the final boss. So the story is the same, but you can just choose. You have so many jobs to choose from, so many types of jobs to choose from, like from a mage job to a warrior to like a knight or a dragoon, to things like a dancer or a beast tamer or whatever the case is. I mean, I think it's close to 20 job titles that the four warriors can choose. And so when I was playing with Professor Geek, well, he was watching me play. He was, having it. Yeah, well, not we were deciding together, like, well, I like the male protagonist to have, the role of the knight. I like someone like Lenna have the role of, a summoner because she's good with beasts and animals. Also a white mage because she's nurturing. Um, Ferris, the pirate, she was like my ninja. What was she? She was ninja, thief. She was something else too, but she was pretty OP'd by the time I was done leveling up. And Galuf was a monk at one point. He was a red mage at another point. I think I did too many mages during the game, so I won't do that next time. And then Kryle took on Galuf's job positions or jobs, and I think I had her do time mage. Yeah, time mage was great. So it's so fun. You have so much variety as far as the gameplay with Final Fantasy V. And you didn't have that with Fantasy IV. With Rydia, she was a summoner and she used black magic. Rosa was white magic. Cecil, of course, was the role of the knight. You had a dragoon character, Kane, I think his name was. So they had pretty much specific jobs to their specific character roles, and that's fine. It serves the story. But yeah, it was really fun to choose that with the different jobs with the gameplay and all that with Final Fantasy V. So that's a game you can always go back to, even if you know the story. And by the way, it took I was pushing like 53 hours, and yeah, I was grinding a lot too. And I actually had to start over a couple times, well, more than a couple times. It's a long game. It is a really long game, but it's really fun. The next thing I like about the gameplay is just there's a lot more personality, I would say, with the characters. The protagonist, his default name is Bartz. I actually didn't care for that name, to be honest. It's just that name doesn't work for me. So I called him Kurt with a K, and so Kurt was my male protagonist, and he just has a lot more spunk. He's younger. He's a lot more playful than Cecil of Final Fantasy IV. But he's still a hero. He still wants to do the right thing. He wants to make right with the world. Not that he did anything wrong, but he was kind of this, meandering traveler. He's like, I'm just here to see the world, because his father, who was a traveler, and there might be spoilers to the game story, talking about Final Fantasy V, but yeah, he was a traveler because his father was a traveler, so to speak. And he had perished, from being ill. And so he just kind of donned the mantle saying, well, I'm a traveler with my chocobo. But when he's seeing that, this young girl needs help, this older man with amnesia needs help, then he's like, okay, yeah, I think I should help these. And then he's kind of thrust into this adventure, meets up with Ferris, the pirate, and that it's really fun. The exchange between the four characters is really fun. And through that, with the kind of playful, adventurous personality of Kurt, and the sweet personality and disposition of Lenna, kind of the kind of go-getter fighter with Ferris, and then the funny, humorous, also go-getter fighter spirit of Galuf. It's just a really good ensemble. It's good chemistry between the characters. And what I like about Final Fantasy V is that I did not see with 4, and I'm not seeing with 6, is that you pretty much stay with your cast of characters. Besides one pivotal point, this turning point in the story, you stay with all 4 characters. They're the 4 warriors, and then you switch it because of a very sad moment where Galuf is he sacrifices himself, and then his granddaughter takes on the mantle of the warrior. Inheriting by his spirit all his power and job titles, and then she takes on the mantle and becomes the warrior he was. And so besides that change in the story, you're having the same ensemble cast. You don't exceed 5 characters, and I don't mind you going between so many characters. Final Fantasy IV had uh, that where you sometimes had Sid, sometimes you'd have the twins. Um, Sometimes you would have Rosa, then she'd be kidnapped, and you wouldn't have her and stuff like that. And that's cool. That's fine. It served the story. But I did like just keeping that the 4 warriors just pretty much the same, with the addition of the switch between Galuf and Kryl. She's also known as Kara in other editions, but she's in the actually I played the Game Boy Advance version, and she was known as Kryl. So that cast is fun. The characters and the personalities. There's just a little bit more personalities to the different characters. Yeah, Rosa, Cecil, Kane. They had their personalities, but they were really serious roles. Rydia was also serious, even though she was the youngest of the ensemble. Besides the twins. The twins were the comic relief, and then Sid was also comic relief, but it was pretty serious. But the Final Fantasy V cast, just based on the dialogue, they had a lot of, fun adventuring together. So that was my experience. And we're going to talk about music themes. One thing why I really, really, really appreciated Final Fantasy V was, in addition to the dialogue and the chemistry of the characters, they had at least a couple of the good guys. Well, actually, they sort of all had their own themes, but I know two I'm going to talk about, Lenna and Galuf. They had themes that really defined either their personality or their story. So we're going to get into that right now. So we're going to start with Lenna's theme. Now, I'm probably going to do a completely separate video, an analysis video on the Final Fantasy female protagonists, the heroines, because really all their themes are quite special, but they're also very well composed. And I'm going to have to say, this could change. My opinion on this could change in the future, but I would have to say that Lenna's theme is probably my favorite. It's probably my favorite out of all of the heroine themes. That Nobuo, that's his first name, Uematsu. That I think, out of all the themes that he wrote for the different characters, and especially the female characters, I would say Lenna's theme is probably my favorite. It is very well composed. Well, she's pretty much tied to Celeste, the character of Final Fantasy VI. Final Fantasy VI. But we're talking about Final Fantasy V. Okay, 5. So let's talk about Lenna and her theme. So Lenna is the first character, the first main character, of the protagonist ensemble. She's the first character you're introduced to. She's kind of, on this high balcony of her castle. We know she's a princess, and her father's going to check out the wind shrine and to make sure that the wind crystal is maintained, that it's intact, it's protected. People are feeling the stir of the air. The wind doesn't feel right. It's getting less and less. It just doesn't feel like the strength of wind, of the wind of the world. So King Tycoon, I think is his name. Is it really Tycoon? I can't remember the king's name. You guys are gonna have to. The word tycoon is that can't be Tycoon. I don't know why that name is in my head. Maybe that is correct. But anyway, the king, he's a featured character. He's not the main character. But her father goes to check this out on his winddrake, and we see her, look out and wave goodbye to her father, wishing him luck, and that's it. And then we go to the male protagonist, who I have named Kurt, and Kurt and his chocobo come upon Lenna, who had been starting to adventure herself, wander. She wanted to go to the shrine, I believe, herself, just to make sure her father was okay. She gets ambushed by goblins, and then he comes and fights her and recovers her. Yes, okay, it is Tycoon. Why? I don't know why that name didn't strike me before the stream, but it did. Um, so uh, so Lenna is the first character, and we're pretty much with her from that very first scene all the way to the very last scene of the game. And because of that, because she's so involved and she's part of the cast, part of the four warriors, she has a theme. And I do believe it is introduced right when she's talking to Kurt for the first time. And it's such a sweet theme. It's a very beautiful, very lyrical melody. It's got this kind of sweeping motion in the contour, the melodic line, with the nice high intervals. I did not warm up my voice, but hopefully you'll get the gist of the melody. Da 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 dum, da da dum, da 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 dum. Da 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 da. And then it repeats da 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 da. It's just really beautiful. There's these little gestures that repeat, and then it kind of goes down, and then it goes up. It's very soothing. And what makes it extra special is the sparse instrumentation. You've got these little chimes, and then this very, very light, flute synth, and then you've got this really gorgeous bass. I mean, it's probably the most gorgeous bass line I have ever heard in music. It's resonant, but it's also gentle, and it's got this beautiful slide. Boom, 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 boom. And it works so well with the higher melody. It's just so good. You'll have to just hear it on YouTube just to understand what I mean. It's a gorgeous slide of the bass. It starts really low. The bass starts really low in register, and it goes a little bit lower, and then it kind of glides up and glides down, goes up, glides down. And the sliding down of the bass is so gentle, and it's so intimate. And I think that's a really important thing for Lenna's character, because she has pretty much what defines her first as a character is her love for her father. She wants to make sure he's okay, that he's doing well. And then in her father's absence, she starts bonding with Galuf, who's not a father figure to her. She doesn't need a father figure, but it's an older man that has amnesia right now. She and Kurt are kind of looking after him, making sure he's okay. He's going to the same place she's going to, and all of that. So a very nice, just a little bit of a masculine presence in her theme. And then after, I think it's either 4 or 8 bars. I can't really think of it right now. After her main melody, there's a 2-bar interlude that goes into the 4 Valiant Hearts theme, which we will get into in a little bit. But it's quite lyrical. It's quite gorgeous, and it's sparse in texture and instrumentation, which I think is really necessary for a character who has she's a girl coming of age. She has a very sweet disposition. She's very nurturing. She loves to make sure that things are taken care of, animals are taken care of, and her theme is all around really, really sweet. And I think I will, on a separate video, talk about what makes Uematsu's heroine themes sweet sounding and feminine sounding. And there actually is a distinction between some of the themes that sound a little bit sweeter, a little sweet, a little more lyrical. And then there are some that sound a little bit more epic. Like there's a little bit more tragedy in some of these heroines' themes. But that will be another video. So that was the first theme. It's beautiful because her theme plays out in different situations and in different scenarios. Uematsu with Final Fantasy V in particular, this will probably be another separate video, knows he knew how to work in specific themes for specific situations. And he peppered them all throughout the game. And it's a long gameplay, so you do need the re-entering of the same themes. So that's Lenna's theme. I would say pretty much tied with Selisa's theme. Uh, well, probably even a little bit higher right now. At least right now, what I'm thinking. It is my favorite heroine theme. It's just absolutely gorgeous. It's lyrical. It's very well structured, and the instrumentation is perfect. And so, if I had to give it a score, I would give it a 10 out of 10. But I'm not giving it a score. This is just an impromptu. So she has her 2-bar interlude that actually introduces the main um, the main hero. And I kind of I put this over to Kurt as the main hero, the knight who is pretty much the leader of the team. He well, kind of. He's still young. He's a little impetuous, but they did try to make him the knightly figure of the game. At least that's how I played it in the gameplay. Um, but that is yeah that thing her 2 interlude before her main melody again is the same theme as the 4 Valiant Hearts. So the Valiant Warriors. The title of the soundtrack is 4 Valiant Hearts, and this is pretty much the theme I think of being Kurt's theme. I think it's because he's on the map, the overworld map. That's the overworld map theme. It's all of them. That theme belongs to all 4 warriors. But because I see Kurt, traveling before they get into their exchanges or their battles, I do kind of see that being his theme. So I'm trying to think of a key to start that theme. Dun 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 bum bum before it repeats, and then it has it. So I think it's like a 2 4-bar phrase, and then a 4-bar extension. It's kind of like a B melody, but it's not really. It's kind of acts more like a transition, a 4-bar transition. And it's nice. It's got some great modal mixture. I mean, Uematsu is a master of modal mixture, or mode mixture rather. But it's the hero theme. It's the 4 warriors, and I love that it just gets into the jumping. One way you can make your music sound like it is brimming with anticipation is go for the higher intervallic leaps. Um, you know, it's kind of hard to sing it as a demonstration, but he does jump the line a little bit. Dun 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 bum 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 dun. I mean, he didn't have to jump that high intervallically, and that's actually it makes it works. The heroes are traveling, and I would say if he wanted to make the structure a little longer, he would have done that intervallic jump on a second repeat of the melody, but he didn't have to. Uematsu was fine with just that nice jump up before the repeat, before the turn of the phrase, and then it has this kind of beautiful. I mean, it has kind of this sweeping, harp or keyboard as the mode mixtures take, carrying you off for 4 bars before the recap of the theme. Da, 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 da. And I think right when you hit that note, it's like a 9th chord or something. It's an open chord of some kind. It's got a little bit of a not jazzy nuance. I want to be careful saying that, but it actually just kind of had that augmented open sound, which is great, which is perfect for an overworld map or open world map, whatever that word is called. So that's the 4 Valiant Hearts. It's simple, it's heroic, it's pretty much the length of 12 bars before it repeats, and it doesn't need to be that much because for the maps, if you're traveling on a map, you're going to run into battles. The encounters of that game is pretty frequent, and so if you're maybe topping off their MPs or HPs, or equipping things, yeah, I can understand where you'd want some length in the music, but you don't really have to. You don't really need so much length because you're about to encounter an enemy pretty much the next second. But that's another theme that he uses. That's another thing that Uematsu uses to incorporate a climactic moment in the drama, maybe before the loss of life, maybe before the heroes kind of rally together and band together for the final fight. Whatever the case is, the previous warriors of the past, as spirits, imparting their blessings upon the living warriors. That theme, that hero theme. Dun, 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 dun. It's good. That comes back. It's really very much like how John Williams reintroduces themes for a moment in a Star Wars story. Uematsu does the exact same. That great treatment of musical composition for Final Fantasy. So that's the second theme. The third theme, I do believe. Oh, what was it called? I should check. I think it's called The Warriors of the Dawn. Let me double check that. Let's see. Open description. Oh, the chat's on. I don't know what to do. I think I named the third theme The Warriors of the Dawn, which is kind of like the four Valiant Hearts. We're talking about the same ensemble of heroes. But I really would say also, and this might be just me. I don't know if Uematsu had this planned. I don't even know if he would call it this theme, but I would actually give the theme, I would hand it over to Galuf, the older man of the cast, for a couple of reasons. So you got this kind of heroic, just triumphant. You got this timpani, bum, 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 and you got the main melody. Dun, 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 dun. And I'm not doing it justice because the harmony is actually really what like bolsters it to a higher tier of excellence. In addition to the percussion, and it's very much kind of a heroic march. I'm the hero. I'm getting things done. I'm getting things taken care of. I got to save my friends. And the reason why I would give this to Galuf is a couple of reasons actually. For his character, the first time we really hear that theme is actually when where the player sees his world. He's not from the world that Kurt is from. And we see him in his world. He gains his memories again. He reunites with his granddaughter. They fly off to take care of business on their own planet. And we do see him in his world. Well, Lenna, Ferris, and Kurt are also there. They've actually been taken captive. They've been captured by the main villain, Exdeath. He's great. And Exdeath is threatening Galuf, saying, "You push my enemies. You push my forces back. I'm going to have these your friends executed." And so Galuf is saying, "Okay, guys, hold the fort. I got to go to this castle. I got to go to Exdeath's castle and save my friends." And so he sneaks into the castle, and then that's the first time I think in the game we hear that theme. Now we do hear it involved with the four warriors anyway. But that's the first time we hear it with Galuf sneaking into the castle, fighting monsters by himself to get to his friends. And also, we understand Galuf also not only having gained his memories back, but we also see that he is a king. He's a king of his world. So it's got kind of this regal, like processional, like, yes, I'm the king trying to make things right. We're fighting this evil warlock, and we're gonna make things right. So I actually would say that theme really is his theme. It does continue after his death. But it's just got that memory of him when you hear it again in the game. So it's good. I don't do it justice by just humming the melody. You got to hear it yourself. But I think it is called The Warriors of the Dawn, if I remember. And actually, oh, that's the other thing that that makes it his theme. The special thing about Galuf as a character is he's not only in the living cast of warriors protecting the crystals and thwarting evil, or not thwarting, but pushing back evil. He's not only in the living cast of warriors, he proceeded from being the 4 main warriors of the Dawn 30 years past. So and that's kind of why his death and and leaving it, bequeathing his powers to his granddaughter is so fitting, is because he was already a warrior of the past, and then he's a warrior of the present. And so that's another reason why that's his theme, because that's the warriors of the Dawn, the fellowship of men who battled Exdeath 30 years prior to the main events of the story. And so yeah, that's his theme. I call it that, the Galuf's theme. So you'll have to hear it and see and judge for yourself. All right. So those were the first 3 tracks of the good guys. We've got Lenna's theme. We've got 4 Valiant Hearts, the hero's theme, or the overworld map theme, but I call it the hero's theme. And then Galuf's theme, the warriors of the Dawn. So the final 2 tracks are for our villains, and I was actually just going to do 4 tracks and just talk about Exdeath, and don't worry, we're going to get to Exdeath's theme. We're going to get to his music. It's amazing. But we can't leave out Gilgamesh. One of my favorite things about Final Fantasy V is this great battle music that we hear. I would say, before I say that, I would say the battle music of 5 really does suffer. It's not as good as the battle music of the other games, but there is a battle music piece that is wonderful. It's called The Clash on the Big Bridge, or it's also called Battle with Gilgamesh. I just call it Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh is a really funny, he's a very interesting character. He is an antagonist. You do fight him. In fact, I think you fight him 3 or 4 times in the game. But he's a very interesting antagonist because he first starts he first counters you with a lot of gloating, and he's this very impressive looking sprite, this pixelated sprite, and he's very imposing looking. He looks like a monster that you don't want to deal with. But as you battle him, and as you defeat him, by the second time you defeat him out of the 3 or 4 battles you have with him, he starts building this admiration of you as a player. He really admires Kurt as a fighter. He mentions that toward the end when you're in this void interdimensional rift or whatever, and he really admires Kurt as a warrior. And he admires all of them, actually. He admired Galuf for taking his stand against Exdeath by himself when his friends were pretty much overpowered by the Exdeath's use of power, directing the crystal's power against them. But Galuf fought it off, and I think Gilgamesh is aware of that, which is really great. He serves Exdeath, but Exdeath punishes him later after like the 3rd battle. I think it's like the 2nd battle where Exdeath sends him to the interdimensional rift, and he's trying to get out. He's like, how do I get out of here? And he's very interesting because you fight him and he's hard and he's imposing, but he talks to you during the battle. He's making, when you fight, you're not going to talk. And Final Fantasy, rightfully so, apart from like the main villains, you don't really talk to the enemies that you're fighting, but there is an exchange. There's kind of this humorous exchange with Gilgamesh, and his battle music is really, really good. Even as the instrumentation of SNES, it's just really complex. It's a main melody that goes into this bridge, and then this crazy chromatic descension into the recapitulation of the original melody. There's no A to B. There's no symmetry. Well, there's no standard symmetry of this structure, but it's really, really good because you go back to the main melody. It's very active. It's very fast. The chord progression is amazing. And with the right instrumentation, it's a very, very good piece of music. Uh, Unfortunately, the Game Boy Advance didn't have the right instrumentation as SNES, but I didn't have the SNES version. I like the SNES version much better. I know that Gilgamesh appears in later games, and I have heard his battle music for the other the other versions. I don't like the instrumentation as much. In fact, I don't like it at all. I wouldn't say his music is bad, but you gotta have the right instrumentation. There's a lot of rock slash metal to his battle music. It's really good. I would love to do a violin cover of it one day. It'd be far into the future. It's really difficult. There's this oh, if you YouTube Final Fantasy Battle of the Big Bridge violin, you're gonna find this one guy. He did it really well. He did it years ago. I used to listen to it just on repeat. But um, he really shredded the violin with Gilgamesh's theme. And I would say Gilgamesh's battle music, like out of all the battle music that I love of Final Fantasy, I would say it's in my top 5. It's really great. I don't get tired of it. I can imagine other people get tired of it, but it's so hero. It's kind of like a little bit of a heroic element to it. So you'd have to hear it to understand what I mean. But Gilgamesh is a great character. He's funny in 5. I don't know if he's funny in the other games, but he's a terrific character. He is an antagonist. He's not a villain, but he is an antagonist. You have to fight him about 3 to 4 times before he really is like, oh, we should travel together. You're such a good fighter. How about we 5, bond and do some adventuring together, and then he says, oh, you guys want to do right with the world and you want to do good for the world. Okay, I guess I'm out. He's kind of like that shade of gray. But so that is Gilgamesh for the 4th theme. Yeah, for our antagonists or villains rather. Yeah, Brian says, yeah, Battle on the Big Bridge is definitely a banger, and it's so true. When I first heard that, I was amazed. I wanted to play Final Fantasy V just for getting to that music. I would say the SNES version is probably the best as far as instrumentation until you actually see people do cover album or cover tracks, whatever it's called right now. And of course, I saved the best for last, and that is Exdeath. Okay, so we were talking about, really shaping Lenna's character as a sweet girl of a very nurturing, sweet disposition, and her music just conveys that just beautiful. It's just so sweet and so lyrical. And we've got the kind of that kingly heroism of Galuf, when he's trying to save his friends, and then of course heroically just defending his friends for the final time against Exdeath, before he dies, before he sacrifices himself. And this is such a good scene. So we have that with Galuf, although that theme does not happen when he sacrifices himself. In fact, that is one of Exdeath's music pieces. So let's talk about Exdeath. We talk about using music to really convey the characters and the characterizations, the traits of the characters. I don't think guys, I have to say this, man, even above Kefka, and I do love Kefka as a villain, Exdeath's music really cements evil for evil's sake. Exdeath's music is really engaging. It's very, very interesting. He has a theme, and it starts with kind of these psycho strings, kind of joop, 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 and then it gets into this major metal percussion, major, like this bass, like this forward, unabashed bass line, and these strings and guitar. It's kind of metal. It's a little metal, and I love it. When every time his music came in, like his music would warn you that he's coming. So you would hear his music like a couple of seconds before you saw him. Like the characters would be bewildered by something like what's happening, and then you'd hear his music, kind of the grating strings, and then he would flicker and appear, and he said, "Ha! This is my grandmaster plan, and I'm so evil and stuff." And it's music to say, "I'm an evil dude. I'm about to do something evil to the world. I want power. I want unlimited power." And the music just says it all. Like, and Exdeath has great dialogue. He has great exchanges with the heroes. But his music is really what bolsters it. I think there was like a 2-week period where I was just kind of obsessed with his music. And I really appreciated Uematsu just kind of just bringing it, like unabashed, unashamed, like this is evil for evil's sake. I miss that about villains. I'm so tired of living in the age where we have misunderstood villains. I don't mind villains who have questions. I don't mind villains who have moral quandaries, but they still do their evil, even in the middle of their moral quandaries. But with Exdeath, he's just evil. He just wants unlimited power. He wants to suck the whole world into this void. He wants the power of the void. He wants to become the void himself. It's just great. He's just unabashedly evil. Now, the interesting thing about his music is it doesn't end with his theme, and that would have been fine. His music theme by itself would have just been perfect for him, and Uematsu wouldn't need to go on. But of course, when you have the big baddie, you have the final boss, and you have fights with him. And the first major fight you have is just with Galuf. Galuf is taking a stand. Exdeath just almost nearly pulverizes his granddaughter in front of him, and he takes a stand and sacrifices himself. And that's the first time you hear. So the theme is kind of in the drama. His main theme is in the drama of the game. But then when you enter battle with him, he has this great battle. It's called the Decisive Battle. For Final Fantasy V, I think there's one for 6 as well. It is great. It's got the strings, got their dissonant, wonderful intro, like boom, bon, dun, dun, dun. And it's all these strings. And then actually I was kind of practicing on the violin because I had to practice the violin, but I didn't want to lose sight of hearing this music in my head. So I started like just playing a little bit of his battle music and the intro. And then it repeats again. Da, 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 da. And then it gets into this percussive line with the bass. It's so good. It's so good. And the total time of that music before it loops back to the recap of the main melody, the battle melody, is 2 minutes and 40 seconds. Now, for gameplay of that era of the 1990s, the early 90s, that was incredibly long. That is very generous length for Nintendo music. It's so good. It really signals that Uematsu almost composed for Exdeath as if he were writing for a film scene. Like, hey, Uematsu, you're going to write for this movie, and there's going to be this 3-minute long battle of a personal sacrifice, and you got to compose this. We're looking for this scene. That's kind of what makes me think Uematsu had in mind when he composed Exdeath's first battle music with Galuf, because it's almost, with the intro, it's almost 3 minutes long. That is incredibly generous length, and it's so cinematic. It's just the strings just, man, I hear it and I almost want to hum it. So I might as well, because I'm geeking out and it's my channel and I can do that. And then it has these little trumpets interlude and stuff like that. And then it goes higher, like I think a whole step higher. And I can't actually sing that high right now, but it continues, and then it gets into this kind of fanfare with the heroes trying to, you know, battle Exdeath. In this case, it's just Galuf battling him. And it's really good, and it's this beautiful balance of heroic epic music and then really jarring, kind of da 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 dum, but da 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 da. I mean, it's kind of chaotic, it's heroic, it's really good. In fact, actually, I think the professor liked that battle music with him um, before his final battle as Neo Exdeath. Now, so Galuf makes his sacrifice, and then then the heroes have to figure out what to do afterward, and they still have to stop Exdeath, and he's still very present. He's a very active villain in the story. The thing with Final Fantasy IV is Zamus he comes at the very end. He's like, oh, he's kind of foreshadowed, like in name only. He's like, oh, this entity is dangerous, but Exdeath, he's very active. He gets in the faces of the main characters. He bruises them. He beats them up a little bit, even in the cinematic part where you're not in the game, where you're not fighting him, where he's just, you know, it's like a scene of a play, you know, where the good guys are struck down. But that the decisive battle, you know, after his battle with Galuf, that happens again for the final time when he takes this form of a tree, this really weird looking tree. And he's kind of embodying the power of the void at that point. And it happens again. And it really, like, the intro is really unsettling. You feel like, oh, this is it. This is the start of something very, very hard. And it's just, again, it's almost 3 minutes of great music before it recapitulates to, you know, 3 minutes of great music, 3 more minutes of great music. And then, so that's actually, you know, the prof's favorite part of Exdeath's theme. I think he likes the metal of his main theme as well. But then we get into Neo Exdeath. And Neo Exdeath is my favorite. In fact, as far as all the final battles, guys, I'm sorry. I will play Final Fantasy VII. I'm not looking forward to the music of the One-Winged Angel. I know people love that so much. I know Uematsu loves that music piece. But there is something about Neo Exdeath. I really feel, next to Kefka with his final boss music, Neo Exdeath, I think, really works as a music composition. So Neo Exdeath is great. The sprite is ridiculous. It like takes up 3/4 of the screen. And it looks demonic, you know. This is supposed to be the entity of all evil. You know, he's I think he says something like, what does he say? He's like, I will consume everything, and then I too will disappear. So it's that message of nihilism. You know, if I go, everything goes. But it's really good. Now, I would say with the original SNES instrumentation and the Game Boy Advance instrumentation, I will say this: it is great composition. It is wonderful music composition, but the instrumentation, for its limited capacity, does not do it justice. I wish Uematsu did a couple things. I wish he only needed to do one thing to really improve the music composition, and that was to make Neo Exdeath's theme, his battle music, much faster in tempo. If he sped up the tempo, it would have been better. Like, the music would improve much better. So it kind of starts out with this like Night on Bald Mountain, you know, like that, and then it dun 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 bum dun 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 dun, and then it repeats bum dun 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 dun. Well, actually, that's his earlier theme, but it's so good. And I would, in the far future, way over there, I would actually love to do an electronic violin cover, because it's really, it's so progressive rock / metal. It's really good. Da. And then the main melody of his it's so hard to talk about it. You know, you'd have to see a score, you'd have to hear the piece, but it has the main melodies. And it's got this great syncopation, and I can't. It's got a lot of jumpy registers jumping around, and I can't do that with my voice. Again, it would have to be done by violin with electronics to make it work. But it's good. It's so involved. Like between his main theme, his first battle, the Decisive Battle, and then his Neo Exdeath battle theme. It's like a really involved medley of evil villain music, and it's so good. I feel like I'm not doing any justice just kind of describing it, other than to show you my immense excitement and passion for something like it. But again, going back to a really, really important point, and we'll get to chat after this. Uematsu, he didn't hold back with Exdeath. He said, this is an evil guy. He's going to do an evil thing. Let's ramp up the hamminess of evil. And I think that's actually really, really important with storytelling. Exdeath, he's totally evil, and he's very serious. He's a very serious character. You don't want to like laugh at him. But he's also humorous in his he's very hammy. He's a very melodramatic evil. And I think it's warranted in a Final Fantasy game. But the music really displayed that so well. All around really good music. So that's the 5 themes that I was thinking of for Final Fantasy V. A lot of other great music in that game, but Lenna's theme, especially the main hero theme, Galuf's theme, or the 4 Warriors of the Dawn, Gilgamesh with his battle, and then ultimately all of Exdeath's music, including, you know, his main theme and his 2 pieces of music for battle. And one thing I wanted to say about Lenna's theme too is, for the longest time, I thought it was like the theme of family. It's a very much a family theme, because her theme is introduced in different points of different relatives, of different friends, of a memory of a family relative. So I thought it was like the family theme, or maybe it was between her and her relationship to Ferris, her sister. And then I realized, oh, it's commonly known as Lenna's theme. But it works really, really well with Exdeath's theme. The hero theme and Lenna's theme, or family theme, and Exdeath's theme work really well together as a sequence of musical events. I wish I could explain how or why more, but oh, it's so good. So there's this moment at the end, right before they, you know, encounter Exdeath for the final time, where it's all the cast of characters, the living 4 warriors with Lenna, Kurt, Ferris, and Kryl, and then Galuf and his spirit, and the spirit of the other 4 warriors that were of the past, including Kurt's dad, by the way. He wasn't a traveler. He was his father. Or, well, Kurt's father was a previous warrior of the Dawn. And it just kind of culminates in all 3 themes. It's great. It's great. So anyway, very well done. All the music of that game is really well done. And I think that's, you know, apart from the job systems and the characterizations of the different characters and the chemistry of the different characters, it's really the music that makes it stand out. And I would say with any Final Fantasy game, I would say, yeah, Uematsu did to Final Fantasy what Star Wars, or John Williams did to Star Wars. I don't know if Final Fantasy would be as remembered or as beloved without the composition, the musical composition of Nobuo Uematsu. So anyway, thanks for listening to that. Let's go ahead and get to the chat. Yeah, Go Team Ghost Planet. Bart says, yeah. Oh yeah, Bart Simpson. Yeah, it just doesn't sound like a name for a hero. So, oh, your avatar. That's what I'm talking about. It's not a famous game. I've seen it before though. Is it an indie game? I've seen the look of that character before. But that's cool. Final Fantasy fan says, FF history. The job system made its first appearance since Final Fantasy 3. I did know that, though it wouldn't be much more enjoyed until Final Fantasy 5. Yeah, I think 3 is found in regular Nintendo, and I might play it. I'm not sure. But yeah, it's definitely evolved for the better in Final Fantasy 5. Galuf. Whose idea was it to steal a pirate ship? Look in the mirror, Pops. Yeah, that was the Game Boy Advance. I have a lot of fun reading the dialogue. I really get into character. Like even Exdeath. Like I don't mind doing the villainous laugh and it's really fun. Sometimes I name Bart's Zero in reference to one of my favorite non-Final Fantasy video game characters. Cool. Bart's base class is a freelancer. I thought, well, they're all freelancers when you. Oh, I made. Besides Kryl as Time Mage, I think they were all freelancers by the time I was done with their mastery level jobs. In Dissidia, Bart's class is Mime, having the same weapons as the FF heroes, though he has his own sword, Brave Blade. Yeah, Dissidia looks like an interesting game. Strike that. His full name is Alexander Highwind Tycoon. Well, it makes sense. Highwind would make sense. As many times as I've listened to that theme, never put it together that the B section was the Valiant Heart's Melody. What a nice touch. Oh, yeah. That would be an analytical video in the future for me. He works with themes all over the map in Final Fantasy V. Just a crazy amount. There's a music piece when they're hurrying out of something, like they have to run out of a building exploding or whatever, and there's he incorporates that theme in that music too. It's really good, and that's actually, that's really important, not just for games, not for video games, but also for film. That's people like filmmakers don't understand these days how important themes are. And you'll have themes for good guys, but you won't have themes for bad guys anymore. So it's got to happen. Got to make it happen again. Gameplay tip. In the basement of, I call it Bal. I think it's Bal. I think Castle. There are enemies that are vulnerable to the blue spell level 5 death. If you have that spell, it's great place to farm AP in Galuf's world. Oh, interesting. I never was a blue mage. Are you talking about blue mage? Oh, I use Thief or Ninja with blue command to get it off faster. Oh, cool. Thief was fun. Yeah, Thief is Thief will probably always be a job that I select. I probably don't want to know about Bart's dancer class. DLC costume in Dissidia. Yeah, the Japanese might have some humor that yeah. Wouldn't surprise me if Uematsu took inspiration from John Williams. Yeah, and I actually understand that he wasn't even classically trained. That's the crazy thing. I think he was talking about, I think that he had an interview, I don't know with who, but he was talking about composing for Kefka's theme. And Kefka's final battle music is really elaborate, where there's this organ solo, for goodness sake. And I'm like, how in the world, because I think he's not classically trained, and I'm like, how in the world can you compose that not being at least a little classically trained? It's crazy. Now, some people really do have that inner ear, that like genius inner ear where they just do not need that formal training. But it's very few. Very few people have that. Final Fantasy history. Exdeath, Final Fantasy V's main villain, is the second villain in the series where his origins lies within the void since the Cloud of Darkness from Final Fantasy III. If are the worlds connected? Because I thought Final Fantasy was strictly episodic, but some time. I mean, you talk about dimensional travel and stuff. with Final Fantasy. So that's palpable or possible, I would say. Oh, that's a good thing to know. Yeah, that's important. After Gilgamesh made his debut in Final Fantasy V, he quickly became a fan favorite character in the series. He would make his later appearances in Typo, Final Fantasy 12, 13, 2, 14, 15, etc. Wow. I hope he's as humorous because he was really funny. He was a funny character. Oh, actually, okay. Interesting that you say that, Brian. Not gonna lie, some of the instruments in Exdeath's theme almost sound like evil laughter. Okay, so if you listen to with good sounding headphones, his main theme, he uses, I can't remember what instrument and where he puts it. He has an instrument in his theme where at the beginning of his theme, he'll pitch that instrument way down, and he must have done like a low, not a low pass, but he must have done some sort of oscillator control on it to make it sound like a very deep bass laugh. Because actually you will, I never heard it before with playing the game, but if you hear it with good headphones, you'll hear like underneath your ears, you will hear a low ho 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 ho. And I laughed when I first heard that. I was like, that's funny. And it's an instrument he uses in that theme. He'll use the instrument like normally, functionally, but he'll use that instrument, pitch it low, and have it be a laugh. Yeah, Exdeath is very much an elemental evil type of villain, and I think that's what makes him great. There's no the only backstory he has is wanting to take power, I think, from a tree or something. Yeah. Exdeath Neo Excess theme was so cool. I especially love the Dissidia version of the song. I'll have to hear it. I don't think I've heard that one. Exdeath battle music is just plain epic. It is so good. It's so good. It's like I'm hearing it now and I was like, it's so well done. There's a bit of rock guitar mixed with the other instruments. And okay, so I think I wonder if it is rock guitar that he uses to. I wonder if it is electric guitar that he uses for the laugh. I'm not sure. Mixed in with the other instruments of Exdeath's battle theme. Johnson says, I hadn't heard this stuff. I listen as you go. Now I'm tempted to play the game. It's a good game. I will say this though, it is an underrated game. It's an underappreciated game. People who love it, but it's not as popular as 4, 6, 7, 9, 10. It just didn't make it. It's not, I guess, seminal in popularity. I personally love it. Some people don't care for it. I've heard mixed reviews. I personally think it's great, but that's just my preference. But Brian says you're in for a treat, so he vouches for that. Neo Exdeath almost sounds like a bunch of demonic creatures mashed up into the shape of a claw or hand. Yeah, it's a weird looking animation. It's Final Fantasy, the makers of Final Fantasy, they really wanted to make the bosses look as evil as they were. Like if you're evil enough to destroy the world or consume the world, the visual has to be also evil. They didn't do that with Kefka at the end, and that's fine. Actually, it's pretty symbolic of Kefka. He looks like that kind of angel of light, even though he has his kind of gesture face. Because he believes himself to be a god toward the middle of the story, I think. No, not too many spoilers, guys, because I'm going through it with Prof is watching me play Final Fantasy VI. Kefka's theme is great too, and you hear the theme sometimes before you even see him on screen. It's great. One of the things I love about that musical cue, when you hear either Exdeath, his theme, or Kefka and his theme, it's like oh no, here they come. It's really fun. I had planned to play through Final Fantasy VIII as the next RPG, but maybe 5 after that. What I'm going to do, so here's my game plan for retro gaming. I'm going to finish 6, and then I'm actually going to take a Final Fantasy break and do Chrono Trigger. And then after Chrono Trigger, I'll probably try Final Fantasy VII. I'd like to go. I wouldn't mind going up to 10, probably up to 9, but maybe 10, depending on if it's for me. I just like the Super Nintendo RPG. Bit of trivia: Ferris's real name is Sarisa Sherwill Tycoon. She got the name Ferris because the pirate captain who found her at the sea kept mishearing her name as Farifa. Sarisa, Sarissa, Farifa, Ferris. Interesting. I didn't know that. That sounds like backstory stuff that's not in the game. Oh yeah, I've actually seen the game though played by a music composer. There's a guy I knew on Mines. I'm not on Mines anymore, but he wrote original music to support that game, like little silly scenes. But interesting. Unless it is a different character. All right. I like that the Game Boy Advance version had a Ninja Turtles reference during the fight with Exdeath and Sage Guido. Guido was great. Was there a Ninja Turtles reference? That's kind of funny. I guess there would be because he's a turtle. Blue mages were awesome, but I admittedly didn't use them on my first couple of runs. Yeah, I didn't have any interest in the blue mage. But Time Mage was probably my favorite. Well, no. I don't know what my favorite job is. Themes, people. We need themes. Yeah, for music and for writing. All right. Pointless trivia by Dr. Weiss. Freelance was coined by Sir Walter Scott in his story Ivanhoe. It was essentially another word for mercenary. I can see that. That makes sense. Oh, he was actually born as an evil soul sealed within a tree. So he was meant to be evil. There's nothing to misunderstand. he's just an evil being. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So let's see. We've got just a little over an hour. I think that was all. I'll go back. Sometimes let me see if I can see some. Oh, yeah. Sometimes StreamYard doesn't post some of your posts, but I think I made it to the end of the chat there. And I actually that was pretty much it for me. It wasn't a score or analysis. It was just kind of my impressions. It was a total impromptu, but my impressions of just the importance of music and characterization. You really do need, definitely for video games, definitely for game music, but also for TV, for film. You just need to know how to work in games. It's so crucial. And I think if people if they lose that, if our culture loses that in entertainment, then we won't have a way of remembering things. I don't think Final Fantasy V would be even a success or memorable at the very least if, the characters weren't who they were and if Uematsu didn't compose the music he composed. So anyway, that was pretty much the topic for me. Probably won't do Final Fantasy VI for a while because I just started the game. I came out of Phantom Forest, beat the train. I'm with Tara and her crew back in Narsh. I call it Narsh. Is it Narsh or Narshi? I think it's Narsh. Great music there too. But I think I would, after I finish, I'm slowly going through like the different Donkey Kong games. So I'll go through all 3 games as for score and analysis there, and then I'll tackle Final Fantasy IV with an assessment, score and assessment, not assessment. I would say evaluation. Yeah, that's a better word for it. And then definitely tackle Final Fantasy V. And 6, and I would talk about, the heroine themes, how to compose a very feminine melody, how to compose a sweet lyrical feminine melody, or how to compose an epic feminine melody. The sweet lyrical is Lenna, Tifa, Rydia is very simple. It could have been. It's sweet. It's short. It's. I probably won't analyze her music because it's pretty simple, but it's nice. It works for her character. So that's the sweet lyrical themes. Lenna, Tifa, and Rydia, if I include her. For epic, I would say Aerith and Celise. And Terra as well. That's more of the kind of the epic, scope. It's the drama, it's the cinema. There's tragedy with Celise's theme. So good. I mean, it's tragedy, but I think she has, well, no spoilers because I don't know. She's not really a tragic character, but she undergoes a lot of different things. And then actually, I might include Lightning's theme in the mix as well. I don't know anything about that character, but she has a pretty interesting theme as well. So yeah, I would definitely do a video covering the female heroes. Okay. Well, I mean, honestly, if that's pretty much what I had to say. I mean, if I feel like it, I might talk about. I was gonna go on not a rant, but I was gonna go on a kind of a creative talk about a discussion of creativity that I probably actually should talk about. I have to get some more water. We might change the subject, and I might go for like another 15 to 25 more minutes, depending. Because it is really important to talk about. I don't know if I have time to record for a separate video on a separate time. So, oh, and actually, Brian, so far he likes them. So Professor Geek likes the Final Fantasy games. I don't think he'll play on his own. He loves Kingdom Hearts, and we're going through the second game. He's playing the second, not the card game, not the Chain of Memories, but the second installment of that story. He loves watching me play Final Fantasy. I don't know if he would play it himself as far as gameplay, but he enjoys the story. I love it more because of the music, really, over anything. So I'll geek out about the music. The reason why I'm answering for him is I think he's doing hands-on things with rearranging his office space and another space. So I don't know if he's actually available to type. So I'm answering for him, if that's okay. So I might, if you guys want a longer stream, I could talk about one more thing, but I would need just a quick break. And I'm sorry, I'm kind of, yeah, I should get this off my chest. So if you guys don't mind, let me see if my music works. I'll go to my music and just talk about one other thing that I think is really, really important for creatives, if you guys are of the creative bunch. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if this is a good track to hear. I personally like it, but let us see. Let me know if you can hear this. Ooh, I can hear it on my end, but that's just through my headphones. Can you guys hear that? I don't know if it's the best sound for it, but I wouldn't mind taking just a quick break to get some water. And then I'll talk about some creativity things. Actually, if you can hear it. Yeah, if you can hear it, you probably can't hear me. So, there. So I'll be back in like a few minutes. Like 3 minutes. All right. Okay. So, yeah, I got my water. Yes, this is good. My hair's sticking out. Ew. What's that? Okay. All right, can you hear me all right? So, I said I put a post on my community tab just a little while ago, about a week or so ago, where I was creatively stuck. And I wouldn't equate this to like a writer's block where a writer is having extreme difficulty just moving through the pages, you know, the words. I wouldn't say that. I was still composing, I was still being creative. I creatively stuck. I I just was working on stuff and re-editing and rehashing and trying to improve pieces of music I just didn't have the heart to improve. I just didn't have the heart to continue going on with this kind of music. So this is a little bit of a change in topic, but I think this is important for creative artists. If you are a creative artist and you work with anything, whether it's writing or music or visual arts, the I think you will actually come into a little bit of this bind, this creative bind that I came up with a couple weeks ago. So I just want to give you guys just a little bit of my experience of being creatively stuck, and I hope this helps you. I hope you think back onto this conversation if you ever run into this yourself. So you need to drink a little bit more water. So, just to give you a little bit of context for my experience, I had finished my master's of music composition with emphasis in technology year 2014. So, a little over 8 years now. Actually, it'll be 8 years this May. 8 years ago, I graduated with my master's. That's kind of crazy to think about. But it was 8 years, and I had gotten my music composition degree, and I knew I wanted to explore electronic music. I just didn't know how. So after getting my master's, I moved out of the state, lived in a new city, got a receptionist job, and I just started rethinking what I wanted to do with the music, with all the composition techniques that I had learned in school and how to apply it in whatever music. Like, I didn't know if I wanted to compose for academic music anymore or if I wanted to do something completely new. Well, the more I listened to electronic music outside that academic university setting, the more I realized, well, I want to compose that. So I had to start from scratch. I had to start all over. So I had about 8 years of higher education in composition and music education. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to start from first base, just start from scratch. And so I really started exploring Logic Pro. And I started practicing and working these instruments and started like, how do I use this software? How do I use the interface? How do I use the editor? How do I use all of this stuff? And I just started slowly, bit by bit, every day, started just accruing these little sketches of electronic music. And I thought I was going to release this music 7 or 8 years ago. And over time, over the course of 5 to 6 to 7 to 8 years, I had released a lot of that music on my albums that you have seen on Spotify or whatever on my channel. But I had a good 2 hours of music of just sketch work that I wanted to beef up this year, and all the skills that I learned the last 8 years. I'm like, well, I'm going to use the skills that I learned, and I'm going to beef up the old sketches, these 7, 8 year old sketches that I think are really cool, that sound great, but it's just going to be better with my new skills. The skills that I've accrued over the length of time, with daily practice, the constant going to working on my craft, improving my craft, and all that good stuff. So yeah. So before I compose any new music, I'm going to really home in and get these 2 hours of music of sketches that they just need to be released. I'm a prolific composer, I want to release music all the time. I want to be prolific in my creativity. So let's work on these sketches and just release these sketches. And so my last release was Bradbury Lane, and that was October. And we're in April. We're almost at the end of April, and I haven't released any music. And I thought, well, I was going to release like a couple EP albums by now. A couple EPs with these music sketches that I wanted to, beef up. And it got to the point where I was working on 4. Now 2 I do plan to release next month. But I was working on 4 tracks in total. I'm only happy with 2, and I was listening to the other, and I couldn't get the right instruments. I just couldn't get that sound I wanted. And this is not perfectionism. I was no longer happy. I was like, you know what? It's not, I don't think it's right to release this music. I think these little sketches served their purpose with with just me being building my skills and getting more familiar with electronic music in general. And so a couple weeks ago, I did something that I pretty much would not recommend any artist to do. I would not recommend any artist. I wouldn't recommend that you do this, but I did it anyway. And that was basically cleaning up all my Logic Pro files and cleaning up all these music projects. I mean, cleaning up all these projects, all these old sketches, and I'm like, you know what? I'll put them in an external hard drive, but honestly, I don't think a lot of them even made it to the external hard drive. I actually decided to check them. I'm like, you know what? I don't see myself ever for the rest of my life going back to these. What I did do is I went through every single file and I'm like, okay, I like this instrument. I got to make sure this instrument is saved. I like this here. I got to make sure this is saved. But apart from that, I'm like, you know what? I don't like the structure of these pieces anymore. I'm beyond this structure. This was me 8 years ago kind of structure. I don't like the bass line. I don't like, the harmony's really simple. I can't do much with it. And so I decided many projects were going in the trash. And that was actually something I was warned about. A professor of mine said, you never want to throw away your stuff. You never want to throw away your workmanship because you never know if you want to refer to them later for other things. And he said, you should save these in a file or in a drive and have them store them for the harvest. You want sketches for the harvest for a future thing. And the more I was thinking about with these files, these projects, I'm like, you know what? I'm in my 30s. Won't be long before I'm in my 40s. I'm like, I don't see myself I don't see myself going back to these projects. And so last couple of weeks, it was making sure I had the instruments I wanted, and then I just checked them. I just put them in the trash, and I freed up a little computer space. and it's not something I recommend people do. This isn't a matter of perfectionism. This was a matter of like, I need to actually compose again. Because at this point in my creative experience, and over the last 4 to 5 months, if I'm being honest with myself, apart from learning new skills in SuperCollider, I haven't really been composing. I've been working on that the synthwave track. That was composing, and I still need to finish it, and I plan on finishing it. But I haven't really been composing. I've been editing. Editing is not creating. Editing is part of the creative process where you're improving what you've made, you're improving what you've initially created, but editing is not the same as composing. A writer would agree with me there too. Editing is not the same as writing. It's a huge part of writing, but it's not the same as actually putting new words to the page. Editing is a very, very important part of the creative process, but it has been the part of the creative process where it's actually stunted my creative growth. I've built skills in the editing process, but I haven't implemented those skills at all in new works. And so after checking a good amount of sketches, I actually had a sense of peace, like a weight was lifted off of my shoulders. Never felt that before when it came to throwing away music composition. But I felt really good about that decision. Now, I want to be very careful about my actions there because I come from a place, and this is really, really important for you guys to understand as fellow artists. I was able to do that because I work on my craft every day, and I've been working on my craft every day since my education 8 years ago. So a good 7 to 8 years of constant daily practice where I have released music and I'm about to release, more music. And and it was music that I just knew in my heart and my gut, I was never coming back to. And I tried to justify, I tried to say, no, no, you gotta be prolific. You gotta release everything you make. And then I thought about it. I was like, you know what? I'm getting to that point where I'm as far as my skill is concerned, I'm beyond the creativity of that said music. And if I released that music, I I came to terms with this. If I released that music, it would not be good marketing because a couple things would happen. I would release, 2, 3 small albums, and people would say, "Oh, this is her style." Eh, I'm not interested. Or maybe this is her style. I'm very interested. And then it's not music I want to create in the future. Because the music I want to create in the future is actually more ambient, down tempo, experimental, but with beauty like melody and harmony and bass. I want all that stuff. Well, the melody, the harmony, and the bass with the ambient, down tempo, cinematic kind of like solar fields, the stuff that I really love listening to, I want to compose. And my music, while I'm proud of the music that I've released in the last couple of years, it's music I've worked on, I've experimented with, and a lot of those pieces that you hear on my albums are old sketches that I end up releasing anyway. But the stuff that I want to compose in the future, it's a creative break. It's actually a stylistic break from what you hear on those albums. And I was fighting for 4 months with that. I'm like, "No, no, just release the stuff that you have." I was like, "I'm not going anywhere. I'm slowing my process down." So, it was it was good bad marketing because it was a style that I was no longer following as far as composing, as far as being creatively, making. I'm like, "Okay, you know what? I don't wanna market myself wrong either." The stuff that people hear, yeah, there'll be, like, some stuff like a synthwave track, which I don't picture myself composing for synthwave at all. I just wanted to try my hand in synthwave because I like that genre. But that's not what people should expect of me all the time as sound engraver. I wanna really work with kind of the cinematic experimental music, kind of in the way of Hans Zimmer, except very, very different from Hans Zimmer. And maybe I'll do a video on how to compose like Hans Zimmer without sounding like Hans Zimmer, or how to sound like Zimmer without sounding like Hans Zimmer. Because I know that sounds a little abstract, but there's actually a way to work with his sound or the feeling without being, totally exhausting in your sound because his music is exhausting. But there's a way to work with experimental cinematic electronic music that is not tiring, and that is actually quite beautiful. I'm highly inspired by people like Solar Fields. I don't care for every album he makes, but the albums that I do like, I really like, and I want to kind of follow that style. It's not gonna be perpetually dark all the time. It's got a darker tone, and I am, you know me, I'm bubbly and cheerful and stuff like that, and I'll have, cheerful, beautiful moments too with my music, but my style is changing, and the stuff I wanted to release this year, I'm like, "You know what? It's not working. It's just not working." So, after having come from all of that in the last couple of weeks, I started composing a new piece again, and I feel really good about it. It's not even halfway done. It's gonna be a longer track too. I might actually start composing longer tracks, like between 8 and 11 minutes, maybe even 15 minutes, depending on where the music takes me. That sounds long, but I listen to very long, electronic music if it is beautiful. If it's well done, if it's a really well done piece of composition, 15 to 18 minutes in length is very good for my writing when I want to write, when I want to write my science fiction, that is a really good length. I'm no longer going to, well, not no longer, I can't say that, but I don't see myself being very short with my tracks, like 2 to 3 minutes. I don't see that. Like I'm not gonna like crunch my music to like radio, that radio slot, that time frame there. No, I really like the long, drawn out, not exhausting, not redundant, but really well, cinematically well done, dynamically well done, electronic music. So this new track, it's I think it's gonna work. I hope it works. I gotta finish it though. If I don't finish this track, that's where I know I will suffer from perfectionism. I know it's not perfectionism that I suffer. It's just it's a stylistic break. It's a creative break that I just really needed. And so that's what I mean by being creatively stuck. When you actually do practice your craft every day for years on end, and you do feel like you're kind of going in circles, that's when you need to take a step back and saying, should I release this? Should I market myself this way? If I want to do a different style, I've got to learn to actually start with that style. I've got the techniques for it. Now I just need to actually put it to the page. I need to put it down on paper. I need to put it down on my Logic Pro and work with that. Occasionally, I'll still have like the really happy, upbeat stuff. And I actually saved about 7 or 8 tracks of the sketches, but I did actually no, actually probably even more. I'll have to check, but it was a good 60-70% that I just chucked. So hopefully that made sense. I needed to get that off my chest, to be okay with having a creative break when you're thinking, you know what, I've enjoyed working in this style, but now it's time to move on to another style. And maybe you guys will experience that when you practice every day, or if you do practice every day, you might say, well, you know what, I liked this animation style. I liked working with this kind of color scheme. I liked working with this kind of writing, this genre. But now I feel like I should do something new with the skills that I have, accumulated over the years. So, anyway, that's what I wanted to say. Give yourself a little bit of room after you've done so many years of your art and say, okay, it's time to move on to a new thing, have a new voice, have a new sonic signature in the way of electronic music. With me, I really want to work toward a new aural signature. And I think I just lost my train of thought. There was something else I wanted to add to that. It'll probably come back to me. But yeah, feels good saying that. That was a nice little rant. Let's see what you guys have to say. Oh, thank you, Danza. My music, because I wanted to hear it on my phone just to see if it was working, and it really slowed down. Like, it was slowing down, it was speeding up. It's actually a consistent upbeat tempo. I like that track, by the way. It's actually one of my favorite upbeat tracks that I've made. If you felt like it was slowing down on your end, I think that was StreamYard, because it's a consistent tempo and it's kind of upbeat as well. Oh, well, it's got a slow kick, but it's still upbeat. Thank you. That was sidetracked, by the way. That was my track sidetracked. I've been feeling creatively stagnant as of late. I don't know if it's just creative fog or having a lot of stuff going on in my life right now. It can be a number of things. Excuse me. I definitely default to discipline over passion. You don't want to just be on passion all the time. You don't want to be just like, I'm so passionate about this, because that actually will it doesn't die away permanently, but you have your ups and downs. Whereas with discipline, you like, I compose when I like don't feel like it. Now that's not I don't all that's not really a problem with me, because I always feel like creating music every day. That was my point that I missed. You're you're creatively stuck when you are not producing new things, when you're just rehashing and re-editing old things. So when you're in that position, when you're in that stage, you got to break away and say, nope, you got to compose something new. You got to write something new. You got to draw something new. You don't want to keep trying to improve when you're like, do I really want to do this? That was the case with me. But anyway, yeah, it could be life things like job changes. I actually got accepted to teach a couple days in town. I'm waiting on students to file in the available time slots, but I will have a part-time job teaching. Trying to get hopefully another job as a content writer. That would be so cool. But yeah, my work life is changing. Family life, of course, and but I would say kind of home in on what is causing that stagnation for sure. I still have some old drawings from years back. Sometimes I look at them and I'm surprised at how much my art style has changed. Yeah, I mean, change is most certainly going to happen. With me, change was with the ears. Like my ears are so in tune, like to everything, like what sounds flat, what sounds hollow, what sounds deep, what doesn't have enough girth, what has too much, too much presence, too much resonance. Yeah, you do change over the years, especially if you do it every day. If you're working on your craft every day. Final Fantasy 12 says, I agree. After I'm done with writing the script for Light and Darkness, just on chapter 11, by the way, I will type the story on my computer as it will go through the editing stage in order for it to flow well. Yeah, complete it first. Yeah, complete the draft first before editing. I mean, I'll say this. Sometimes when I write, I do edit after writing. So I'll write the chapter or I'll write like 2 or 3 paragraphs and then just lightly edit. Not thoroughly edit, but just lightly just kind of get it going. But definitely writing it down first. I have thousands of recorded guitar snippets on different iPhones, and some of them broke. Oh, that's a shame. I've been thinking of going through all of them to see if there's anything of value for me today. Yeah, and you won't need all of them. You'll find just kind of like just little diamonds, in the rough. They're not gonna all be diamonds, and that's fine. But find the select few that brings you inspiration. Oh, but I was talking about discipline. Like I'm very disciplined. I work on my craft every day. But it was coming to the point where it's like I actually don't have any heart to continue with these pieces of music. And I remember my dad saying something to me when I was talking to him about my writing. If you don't have heart for the stuff you're writing, your readers are not going to have the same heart. If you don't have the passion for what you're writing, your readers are certainly not going to have the same passion. They won't have the same passion that you have anyway. But if you don't have any heart in the game, like any, what flesh in the game, I can't think of the phrase right now. If you don't have that passion, your readers won't. And I think it was getting to be the same with my music. It's like, you know what? It's not working. It really is time to move on. All right, let's continue. Oh, good, Danza, good. Yeah. I don't usually have these things. I usually am not stagnant in my creativity. I'm very much boom, 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 but not in the last 4 months, that's for sure. The one thing that is doing well is SuperCollider. I went back to SuperCollider practicing it, and we'll have a SuperCollider video this week, I think. Bit by Bit Sound says, I've got a ton of unused ideas as well. 99% of them will never see the light of day, but I'm okay with that. Still writing new music every week. Yeah, it won't be everything. Especially as you're building skill. Now, once you've mastered the skill to where you are happy with the styles you're writing, that is where I would say everything you write, try to release. I'm not a sketchbook person anymore. The skills I have are the skills enough that I need for at least some of the music I want to produce. Not all the music I want to produce. So once you have the skills and you've got your style, then I would encourage you to release everything you compose. Because you want to compose music. Every piece you compose, you should have the goal in mind to release it in the public. At least after a certain amount of practice. But I would even just try to get stuff out even where you are now. That was me back in 2019 with, my first couple of albums. Passion is fleeting, discipline is forever. Oh, good. Okay, that's very good. Okay, I release songs on YouTube every Friday, so I'll have to check out your channel. I didn't know you had a channel. So that helps discipline me to get them finished. Good, good. That's perfect. That's a great routine. All right. So thank you guys. And actually, I do feel a little winded. For just being so excited about Final Fantasy, and then talking about this lastly. So on the dock for this week, thanks again for just all your input and sharing the love of Final Fantasy and among other creative things. I will be releasing a SuperCollider video. I think it'll be my final FM synthesis video. It will be FM synthesis with live processing, so me speaking or singing into the microphone. It's probably gonna be speaking, but singing might work too. I solved a problem. I had a SuperCollider video last week on the gate argument that really helps hold sound and synths indefinitely until you trigger and say, "Oh, gate closed. Time for the synth to release." So now with the gate argument, I will be able to hold indefinitely my live processing. So for this week, it will be FM synthesis. I might add a reverb effect to my live processing, but it just really makes. I want you guys to hear the FM first with my voice before adding something like reverb. But anyway, so be on the lookout for some SuperCollider video, and as I compose this new piece, I'll probably show you snippets down the road. I feel good. I feel like, wow, okay, it's sounding a little like Solar Fields. It's good. That's good. That's good. And I've realized how to do that as well. So that's been a good creative breakthrough for me as well. So yeah, thank you guys. I don't know what I'm going to talk about next week. Something fun. We'll see. Or something impromptu. But thanks always, guys, for hanging out. Until I see you next, you guys keep producing and preserving and promoting all the good art that you love. And I will catch you later. Bye-bye.